Good evening, everybody. Jules Wyman here from juleswyman.com. How are you this evening, this morning, this afternoon, whatever it may be for you, wherever you are and whatever time of day it is that you are watching? As you can see from the very subtle clock behind me, it is 7 p.m. here in the UK, and Monday nights, 7 p.m. mean one thing for me, and that is the confidence conversation. And as it is the last Monday of the month, I know it seems like January has gone on for about 3,000 years, at least for some people anyway. The last Monday of the month is always an open forum, so an opportunity for you to ask whatever question you may have. So I'm going to go on and do my usual bit of rambling for those that have never been on this before. So whilst I'm doing that, for those of you who are either watching live right now, you can pop your question, and it can be about anything, obviously to do with my field of expertise. Don't be asking me about wildlife or sport, or what's the weather going to be like tomorrow, because I'm not going to have the answers there. But if you've got something that you would like support with and help with in relation to your confidence, or in relation to personal growth, or maybe it's to do with relationships, it could be absolutely anything in that realm. If there's something that you would like me to see if I've got any resources or any thoughts on, then feel free to drop your question below. Please don't wait to be asked. And for those of you watching on the recording, you may be thinking, well, what's the point? Because this has gone out live whenever it is, and you've not been able to watch it live and join me live. However, I do go back and answer people's questions. And if it's such a big topic that I think, do you know what, that would be perfect for another confidence conversation, or I might keep it until the end of February and do it, answer your question there. So even if you're watching on the recording, please do not wait. Drop down at least and say hi, because it's always great to be able to give people a shout out wherever they are. And do go on to your Facebook. Well, you're already on your Facebook. What am I about? I'm going on to my Facebook. That's what I was thinking. Is I'm going to go on here and I'm going to share it to my page. Do go on to, or if not, it's just going to pop up live, which is always a joy. Until the end of February. It's not letting me do anything. So I won't be watching myself, because that would be a bit weird. Won't let me share it. So rather than get caught up on that, I'm going to give my attention back to you guys. So as I'm saying, if you're watching this live right now and you have a question about personal development, or maybe it's something to do with relationships, and you can keep it fairly generic and broad if you want to. I've got three questions that I've had been sent in. So I will be starting with those, but please feel free at any point to drop your question in, and I will do my best to answer it in the time frame that we've got. But please do say hi, because it's always great to be able to give you a shout out. And it always just takes a couple of people to get the ball rolling. And also use those wonderful emojis as well. Let me know that you can hear me okay. Let me know that you can see this okay. Although, to be honest, it's more about you being able to hear it than see it. But yeah, do drop down and say hi. It'd be great, actually, if somebody can at least let me know that you can hear me okay. I know I've just heard myself on my own device, but I don't trust things like that because I'm in the same vicinity. So just let me know that you can hear me. That would be helpful. So as with all of these, the whole purpose behind them is to share any resources or insights that have made a difference from my life, and to give you guidance and support in any way that I can. It might be a comment on a book, or it might be a video or a teacher, or it may be an exercise, or some thoughts on something that have made a difference to my life that I will be sharing. And just so that you know, I don't share anything that I haven't used or read myself and had experience of, because it doesn't sit well with me not to. So, and none of the stuff that I will be sharing am I on commission for, unless it's my own stuff, obviously. Then I am on commission for that, because it's my own products. And I will let you know actually about an event that I'm doing, which I don't think I've updated on the page. So I will put the link for on the page for this. I am making the assumption that you can hear me okay, because nobody's actually letting me know And there have been some, no, there haven't. I was going to say there has been some emojis, but that was just me pressing it by accident on the other thing. So I am just going to make the assumption that you can, as soon as I've got people on here viewing, but nobody's actually commented. But please, please, it would be great just to get some emojis or some comments. Now, it has happened before, I'm just realizing this, where people have been commenting and for some reason it's not showed up on my Facebook. So if you are commenting frantically going, what is the crazy lady talking about? Because I am commenting, I'm just going to check and see. No, it's not. I was gonna say, I was just trying to check whether it's coming up on the other page, but I can't see anything. But just as I say that, Alyssa, thank you, my lovely. I really appreciate that. Thank you, my darling. I hope that you are well. And I don't know whether I'll be bumping into you in the next few weeks or so. Maybe, possibly, I'm not sure. Anyway, so whilst I do have these questions that have been sent in, I want to echo again, please don't wait for me to invite you to type or comment or engage in any way, shape or form. You have my full invitation to join in at any point whatsoever. And also feel free to share this with your page, because you never know, there may be somebody that might hear something or something that someone else has written that it resonates with them. So feel free to share. That's what it's all about. So it's kind of, I'm going to start off with one which I've, whilst it was Sue, I think, that sent the question in, and it's actually something I've been having quite a lot of conversations with. If I can put that there, then I can actually see the question as opposed to myself. So Sue, I think it's Sue that sent this question in, and it was about, it's very common. It seems to be coming up quite a lot actually in conversations with coaching clients as well, one-to-one clients. And even last week I did a workshop sort of all around, it wasn't a workshop so much as a facilitated session for a team that are going back to be in a different way in their environment, in the organizations that they work for. So we were looking at their careers. So Sue's question was around, and I'm pulling away any of the personal stuff, was basically, she was saying that she's stuck in a job that she doesn't like, but she doesn't know what she wants to do, and where does she go from here? So briefly, I think that, well, I have lost track of the amount of times I've had this conversation over the nearly 15 years that I've been doing and working as a coach, because I think this is very common. And for a lot of people, they get stuck in jobs, as it's been put, for a number of reasons. And I think very often the initial reason is around finances, because we live in a world where we have to pay our way. That's the way that our world is structured. And so that becomes a focus. And for many, there's pressures in various different ways of how that comes in and what that manifests for people. But I think that's where very often people can get stuck in a job. By the way, just out of interest, I'm not going to put a poll up, but just out of interest, just put a Y or an X. Actually, no, scrap that, because some of you might not want to say whether you're, just tell me if you're in a job that you love. That would be lovely. Just give me a Y for a yes if you're in a job that you love. It'd just be interesting to know how many people are. So I know that it's, I know how joyous it can be to be in a job that you love, and I know how uncomfortable it can be to be in a job that you really can't stand. But equally then, for me, and this isn't words that that Sue used, but this is definitely my languaging around it, is that when I was in that position myself, it was like I felt trapped and sort of claustrophobic and suffocated, and didn't even think that it was possible for me to do anything else, so let alone be working for myself in the way that I am. Hey Joe, you can hear me now. That's cool. As long as you can hear me, that's the main thing. That's the cool thing. Don't worry about the video. You don't need to see me. that's just the added bonus, is the phrase that popped into my head, the cherry on the cake. So I think one of the first things that's really helpful to do, if you haven't done this already, if you are you're stuck in a job that you really don't like and you don't know what it is that you want to do, is first and foremost, I think, because survival is such a primal thing that we need to have covered, and in this instance we need to make sure that we've got a roof over our head and we've got clothes on our back and food in our bellies. So the first thing I would encourage people to do is make sure that you know what your survival budget is, and that is how much money do you need where you are at the moment to cover the basics. And it's an interesting conversation, because for some people, I've had people ask whether to include their pension payments in this basics, or whether to include clothing, for example. Well, from my perspective, if you've got a few outfits that are okay, then actually you don't need to be putting your clothing into that luxury, into your survival budget. This is literally just being able to pay your rent, pay the bills, get food, and it doesn't have to be luxury food, but just food that you can get by on, because at least then you know what you can minimally live on. And I think everyone that I've done this with that didn't know the information beforehand has always been surprised, actually, at how little that we really need to get by on. Obviously, it depends on where you are in the country and the extravagance of where you live. But most people, I remember one lady who went and did this, and she was being given an opportunity that she wasn't sure whether to take to do with work, and decided in the end to take it because she got the information from this survival budget that kind of clarified that this opportunity actually would well and truly cover that, and so anything on top of that would be a bonus. So she took that job opportunity, and then it freed up her time for her to be able to do other things. But she wouldn't have known that if she hadn't have started with that survival budget, getting to know exactly what that is. Lenka says, I was in a job I loved, but currently going through redundancy and having to do a 4-week trial in a job I don't want. And I think this is why this is coming up quite a lot at the moment. Thank you for sharing that, Lenka. And they weren't necessarily going through redundancy, the people I was working with last week, but they were looking at the organisation that they were in is going through restructuring. So some of them have got posts to go back to, some of them haven't, some of them going into different places, some of them are having to interview. So it's a very similar process where that's concerned. So for me personally, the reason I'm saying to focus on your finances in that sense is because if you've got that clear understanding, then you know what you need to cover. You know what you'll need to do to cover. The next thing that I would advise you to do from that point, once you've got clear on you're in a job you don't like, or you in this instance, like with you're saying with Lenka, you're going through the redundancy process, that I like to play around with questions, and obviously I do this in far more detail in working one-to-one, but I like to play around with it. We get very stuck, and I think this is again from the survival. We want to make sure that we've got enough money to survive and pay all of those things, but then we can get very stuck and end up limiting ourselves, either through job titles or through that side of the money, the finances. But actually, for me, I want to encourage people to open up as well, and open up to what is possible. So opening up to those things of what is possible can look like remembering what it was that used to light you up as a kid. If I was babysitting, one of my favorite questions, I know it's a bit weird, but if I was babysitting for you when you were like 5-6 years old, and I said to you, I need to make your dinner, but you can play with whatever you want safely as long as I can see you, what would you have gone and played with? What would be the thing that you'd have got drawn to and got lost with and just enjoyed that to your heart's content? What would have been that thing? So that can uncover quite a lot of insights. Also, then checking in with yourself between the age of about 12 and 14. When adults ask that annoying question of what do you want to be when you grow up, what did you answer? And sometimes even it's worth going as young as 8 or 9 and asking yourself, what did I want to be when I grew up? And it doesn't matter whether the answer is astronaut or ballet dancer or vet which actually comes up a lot. Doctor is another one that comes up quite a lot for people, because to me it's not about the job title. I think as kids we attach a job title, but actually what we're looking at is the things that we love doing. And it might be, so for example, I worked with a lady years ago who realized that actually she, as a kid, it was very much about animals and being a vet and all that side of things. But she couldn't do that because she couldn't stand the thought of having to put an animal down and seeing animals in pain. But through the work that we were doing and exploring what it was, it wasn't that she went and did it as a job. She actually started volunteering more with animals. And because that side of her life was being lit up, then actually it made the work that she was doing far more enjoyable, because she had that part of her life being lit up. It was a very different side of things. So there's lots of different things where that's concerned. And I would also encourage people to start listing out what their ideal job is, but without there being any job title, and create that as a job title, as a job description rather. Because the more you can have play with it, the more you can get freedom with it. You've got the two sides of that. Then you know financially what it is that you need to get covered. So you can be ticking that box, but you can then start looking for the playful side of things, of what you enjoy doing, what lights you up. And if that's what you want to do, if you want to be earning a living that lights you up, then that's going to help that side. If you are not looking for a job that's going to light you up, I know numerous people who do the job for the money, because it then gives them the money and the time to go and do other things. So if you're happy, if that's what you want to do, then you know that that's the direction that you want to go in. But basically, by getting very clear from the financial side of things, and then freeing yourself up from a mindset perspective around that work, that's going to give you the opportunity to go, okay, well, what else is possible? I mean, if you'd have said to me when I left the theatre, I used to work as a stage manager in TV and theatre, and I left there, what are we now? So 17 years ago. I didn't know that this work existed. I didn't know this whole industry I didn't know existed, that didn't just suddenly appear 15 years ago when I started to get involved with it. It's been going for quite a few years before that in various guises. It's just been rebranded at times. So it's important to know that there'll be things out there that people get paid to taste chocolate, for example. People get paid there are tea testers out there. I'm being very British, aren't I? There are people who draw for a living. There are people who write and perform music for a living. There's so many different possibilities. And I think very often we can get locked down into these narrow, and especially as we go through our career, we can get further and further locked down. I see this so much. I would say people in their mid-30s upwards start facing this. And we can get locked down, and it narrows and narrows and narrows. And before we know it, we're stuck in that job, and we really don't know how to get out. So I'm hoping that that's given you some insights, Sue. And Lenka, I don't know whether that's helpful for you as well, to have a look at both of those sides of things and see where you can go from there. Let me know, Lenka, if you're still watching, whether that's helpful for you. And good evening to those of you who have also joined. The last Monday of every month is the open forum, and therefore that's what I'm doing this evening, is answering questions. So if you happen to have a question that you would like to pose, that you think I might have some thoughts on, or maybe able to guide you to some resources or anything like that, then feel free to drop it below. I have got 2 other questions which I'm hoping to get to, but it looks like I might only get one in the time frame that I've got. But feel free to put your question below, because even if I don't get to answer that this evening, I will take that question and use it as either one of the standalone topics on a Monday, if there's enough information there for me to be able to go on and create an answer for you there. And if not, I can carry it forward into the next open forum, which will be at the end of February. So, oh, that's brilliant, Lenka. I'm glad that's given you something to think about, my lovely. Okay, so let's see, with the time frame that I've got, I'm going to slightly reframe, or not reframe, but reword one of the questions And this has come from 2 conversations I've had with clients in the last couple of weeks. It also came with a random conversation with somebody, not quite on the street, but nearly that kind of just randomness as conversations happen. And then somebody else has mentioned it as well. And it actually does kind of tie in very nicely to the event that I'm doing at the beginning of March. She says, trying to copy and paste the link that just disappeared as she was doing that. And why is she talking in third person? I have no idea. Anyway, so I've just put the link for the event below, and I will pin that to the top so you've got that. So the question and the conversations that I've had have been about relationships, and very specifically about family relationships. So not necessarily about intimate partners, but they've been around relationships to do with it's been parent-child relationships, or step-parent, stepchild, or the dynamics of blended families. There's basically lots of that dynamic, the family unit in its many beautiful guises that it comes up in. And it was all of the questions really were on a similar theme, which was around how to have those difficult conversations with those people. And I wouldn't class myself as an expert on the family dynamics at all in any way, shape, or form. But I think what's important in all conversations, but is not necessarily easy, is that to have a good conversation with somebody, there needs to be a level of honesty. There needs to be the space to be able to say what you need to say, but for you to say it in a clean way, which means no blaming, no attacking, but being able to put your point of view forward, and then then you shutting up basically, and giving the other person, if you were talking about it in the ancient tribes, giving them the talking stick, giving them that space so that they then could have the opportunity to say what they want to say. But again, it needs to be set up from that perspective of there being no blame, no finger pointing, no attacking, no name calling, all of that sort of thing. And that doesn't necessarily happen overnight, because that's a much longer cultivation of relationship and conversation. But it has to be two-way. It has to give the opportunity for everybody to have their say. And one of the things that I notice a lot is that I think that halts this kind of level of conversation is the assumption that somebody makes about somebody else. And very often that tends to be the parent assuming, or the parental role, the guider, whoever, might even be grandparent or aunt or uncle, the assumption that that person makes about the other person, and usually child in whatever format that may be. And that child doesn't necessarily have to be 5 or 6 years old. They could be 36, 46 years old. But it's the assumptions that they make, that because they have known this person or these people for a period of time, that they know that they're going to say that. They know that they're going to do that. They know they've always done it. And for me, that's a very blinkered and quite arrogant way of communicating, but not communicating. Does this make sense? Let me know if this is making sense. Because when we make those assumptions that he's going to say this or she always does that, what that means is when we're going into those conversations, those intimate conversations that we want to have, we're not listening. We're not actually listening to what's being said. We're not listening to what the other person may be sharing or wanting to explain. We're going in with our own thoughts and beliefs and bias. So as the conversation starts, we are hearing the other person, but we're picking out key words. And the thinking mind is already made up its mind about how that person's going to be, what they're going to say, how they're going to say it, and it's basically filling in the gaps. so that it will pick out a couple of words and then fill in the gaps and look to ignore everything else that's going on. So whilst it can look like we're engaging and nodding and smiling, we're actually not. We're having this conversation with ourselves. And I think for me personally, whether you are talking about family relationships, whether you're talking intimate partner relationships, whether you're talking work colleagues, whatever it may be, I think one of the biggest problems, the factor that causes the biggest problems, is people aren't listening to each other. They're not giving the space to each other to actually listen. They're talking over each other. They're ignoring each other. They've got their own stuff going on in their heads, and so they might storm off or get angry or whatever it may be. And that kind of communication isn't communication, because you may as well really be sat in the room having the conversation on your own, because you're not listening to the other person. So one of the things, and I can't say that I am a master at this, by the way, this is still a work in progress from my perspective. But one of the things that I'm conscious of when I'm going into any situation with any person is thinking about, or doing my best rather, to be aware of what assumptions am I going into that meeting with? What am I my kind of filters that I'm already seeing now or hearing that conversation with? It's like if I've got pink rose tinted glasses, then I'm only going to be seeing, and that conversation, if you imagine that's going over my ears as well, then I'm only going to be seeing or hearing that conversation through that. Everything's going to be tinged with that pinky color. So even if somebody's going, yeah, but look at that, it's white, I'm going, no, it's not, it's pink, and I can prove to you it's pink because I will describe it, and I can see pink and I can hear pink. And whilst I may not have or we may not have those glasses or the ear filters on visibly, that is what's going on up here. So for me, it's about doing my best, and this is my invitation to the people who are asking about this, is do your best to be as neutral as possible. And that sounds so easy, but it's not necessarily easy, but to be as neutral as possible, so that you can hear what's being said, truly listen to what's being said. And ultimately, that may mean hearing things that are uncomfortable. It may mean listening to things that you don't agree with. It may mean hearing things that trigger you, bugbear, but trigger, or rile you in some way, shape, or form. But if you can sit with that and really listen to what the other person has to say, without attack, without blame, without name calling, then that's where the possibility of an open, honest conversation can start. But that has to start with yourself as well, because if you're going in there guns right, I'm gonna get my say, then I'm going to make my point, I want to make sure I get this point across, then it's going, you're going, so many people say, right, I'm going into battle, or I need to be armed for what they may or may not say. It's like, where did this languaging come from? What's that all about? So that them's my thoughts, as my friend says. Them's my thoughts on that, and it's such a big conversation. I will possibly, that was probably and possibly blended together, do a full video about that at some point. But does that kind of make sense, to give you some overviews, both around if you feel like you're stuck in a job that you don't want to be in but don't know what to do, but also around how to have those sort of difficult conversations? Feel free to comment below just whilst I'm wrapping it up with some information. So the event that I mentioned, I've put the link for below, and it's for mums and daughters. The youngest daughter that we can accept is 14, but there is no upper limit to the mum's age or the daughter's age. So if you are 47 and want to bring your 78-year-old mum, then you are more than welcome to, or if you're 78 and want to bring your 47-year-old daughter, then you're more than welcome to, or any age range there. You'll see when you go on to the Eventbrite page that there are there's actually 6 ticket options. three, there's two groups of three basically, and there's an early bird price, which I'm saying this now and I actually cannot remember when the early bird offer runs out, and it's not telling me on there. Oh no, 3rd of Feb, so not got long Monday, next Monday. God, when did that arrive? So yeah, so that there's that event that's coming up, and it would be fantastic. It would be fantastic to have some of you there. I know there's a lot of you that have mentioned an interest when we were going to be doing it before in September, but unfortunately, physically, I was not able to do it as I was so poorly last year. But I'm back with a vengeance and want to share some of this information that my colleague Tracy and I have been looking at. And the day is all going to be around confidence and anxiety and perfection, and how to deal with all of those three things, and give you the opportunity to spend some time with your daughter or your mum or both, depending on what the structure of the family is, and be able to get all of that sorted, get all of that together, and give you the opportunity to connect as well. So the early bird ends on Monday, so you've got the opportunity to go and have a look at that. And if you have a specific question that you would like me to do a Facebook Live on, then please do either message below, or you can direct message me on here. It does go straight to me, nobody else, so I can, it's just me that will see it. And I look forward to catching up with you next week. And in the meantime, as ever, in a world where you can be anything, please be kind, and more specifically, be kind to yourself. Take care. Bye.